Welcome to the show, everybody. Craig Pasta, Joe Doolin. It is the TruthWire. It's truth time. Of course, with me today, because Fiorella Isabel is on assignment, our trusted colleague and good friend, and I do mean good friend, ladies and gentlemen, the homeless left guy. He's still probably crying about the Los Angeles Lakers, but give him a little leeway. Okay. Matt Weinglass is here.
Okay. Yes. We have to go through our little bit of mourning here on the Lakers, but We're not thinking about that today. And it's great to be here with you, Craig. And I'm always happy to help out the team when I get the call. So let's do it.
You are part of the team, that's for sure. It's been great doing some work with you. We need you guys to do us a good favor. We need you to go ahead and share the links down below. If you're watching on the YouTube, please go ahead and share it out. That's a channel that's been demonetized for quite some time. But there's still some of you guys hanging out over there. So please do us a favor and share the show. Share it if you're watching it on Twitter. Share it if you're watching it on Rumble. Share it if you're watching it on the YouTube. A lot of great things to talk about today, Matt. I have the Sunday paper with me. I don't know if you know this. I'm a newspaper guy. I got the New York Times and the New York Post. But the first story I want to talk about today is kind of interesting because it broke on Thursday night. Thursday night, we were supposed to have a show on Friday. Things got kind of hectic, so we weren't able to do it. So here we are on Monday. But it broke late Thursday night. I don't know if you saw this the other day, but there is a weapons deal. You can shut the music off there, Jayme. Let's kill the music. It's still on. Yeah. So first story of the day, there was a weapons deal that took place. Go ahead and you can bring it up, Jayme, right now. The U.S. prepares to authorize weapons sales to Ukraine following minerals deal. Now, we've been hearing for quite some time. There's a minerals deal out there. There's a minerals deal. There's going to be a minerals deal. The way it's being sold and the things I like to pay attention to most are the reaction from the mainstream, whether it be on the right, the left, the synthetic right, the synthetic left, whatever you want to call it, independent views. But a lot of the Trump supporters were always playing this. This is the good thing about Donald Trump, Matt. He makes sure he gets a bang for his buck. Kind of very equivalent to maybe somebody's, support via criticisms of Erdogan. Like you can say Erdogan is a bastard, but a lot of Turkish people would say he's our bastard, and he always gets something for his vote. In this particular situation, they're going to say, oh, all right, well, maybe he's not the peace president that we talked about, but he's not going to get the wool pulled over his eyes. And all that money that we spent, right, we're going to get some of that back now through minerals. And it was crazy because right after this minerals deals went through, the U.S. prepares to authorize weapon sales to Ukraine following the minerals deal. When you see a title like that, Matt, what's the first thought that comes to mind? Go ahead, take a shot at it before we get into it.
Well, I guess we have to say we saw this coming. And even when Trump, we talk about the whole 24 hours to end the Ukraine war. There's too many people that thought that was out of some sort of principle or moral obligation. The idea is that he was always looking for a deal. So the idea is that we don't want to be involved in something where we're not making money. Like you said, we have to get something for our money. Now we got something for our money. Let's go ahead and give you some more weapons now. So it was never about ending a war because it was wrong to do in the beginning. It was about let's make something come out of this that we'll benefit from. So of course this was naturally the next line of events, and here we go. More weapons to Ukraine. Here we go. Let's do it.
Kind of really puts a bow on a lot of people who push back against capitalism, saying capitalism is no good, especially at the hands of the empire. Kind of reminds me of Donald Trump bragging about the weapons deals with Saudi Arabia as they were using those weapons to bomb children in Yemen. But that's okay because we're making a buck at it, so we're not getting the wool pulled over our eyes. And that's the big difference between Donald Trump and the old guard, right? The new management is better than the old management because we're not going to get played like a fool. The U.S. prepares to authorize weapons sale Ukraine following minerals deal. Well, at least we're not just giving them out of Joe tax dollars money, buying the weapons and sending it over. It's the first time the Trump administration has approved self-defense related sale to Ukraine. And this is by Maya Rodriguez. And this was posted on May 1st, 2025, 7:32 p.m. On the heels of a new rare minerals deal between the U.S. and Ukraine, word is coming of another deal between the two countries, this one involving the sale of weapons to Ukraine. It's the first time the Trump administration has approved a defense-related sale to Ukraine. Congressional records show a notice from the U.S. State Department to Congress under the Arms Export Control Act. It's called Executive Communication 859, and it lists a $50 million or more sale to Ukraine of what it calls defense services, with the air quotes over there. This basically constitutes a required notice to the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee about the sale. The notice date is listed as April 29th, 2 days before the the news of the deal broke. Scripps News has reached out to the committee for comment, but is yet to hear back. And you won't, because once again, the United States government, the Congress, the Senate has abdicated all its power when it comes to foreign wars or foreign military actions to the executive branch. They've washed themselves of any responsibility, right? You know, the AUMF is a good example of that. You know, at the end of the day, Donald Trump, he designates the Houthis as a terrorist organization. He doesn't have to go seek approval to go bomb Yemen. He can just do it himself. And all this stemmed after the towers were knocked down. However, they were knocked down, whatever you believe in. But all this policy came out during the George Bush administration, the AUMF, the Patriot Act, the HAVA Act, which really affected elections. But it was a time of crisis. We have to do this emergency measures. But before I go on, Matt, what do you say to the point that every single time they do this, an emergency mindset, they never go back to what they were doing beforehand? In other words, they take away your freedoms, they give themselves more power. You never get your freedoms back, and they never give up that power.
That's how things work. We don't ever get back the thing that we willingly give up. Nobody in power hands over power. So when we talk about the emergency element of it, you're right. This is kind of a we've been, I hate to say, brainwashed from this approach since 9/11. We've been told that the war on terror, we're all in this together. This is the stuff. This goes into COVID now. This is everything that we experience as a society. It's about, we're all on board. Let's give up our freedom in order to save our freedom. Let's give up our rights in order to save our rights. But like you said, Craig, we never get them back. They just get taken away. Patriot Act that was the first one. And we were yelling about that at the top of our lungs from the left as we were part of the left movement back then. We were saying, no, this is never going to come back. And lo and behold, it never did. And it doesn't matter if it was Obama next, and then, you go to Trump, you go to Biden, you go back to Trump. And even now, there's still people that are fooled into thinking that Trump is uniquely doing this. Trump is uniquely being a dictator, uniquely being a fascist regime, just obsessed with power. But like you said, this power was given to him years before he ever even stepped foot into politics. So we have to understand that perspective and keep talking about this, because there's so many people that are fooled that this is happening right now uniquely to this president, which is just not true.
Yeah, which makes the argument for the left to go back in power. I was putting on a little mainstream media TV yesterday, put on Trey Gowdy, and he was talking about how the Democrats are saying they're having a constitutional crisis. And he's like, all right, I understand what you're talking about, but you only talk about it when it's convenient for you. When you're doing the same type of things and you're giving your guy power, it's okay. There's no constitutional crisis back there. And I think the thing you hit it on the nose too, as well, as when you said, it's all these powers are given, they're never given back. We have to understand that Donald Trump got this power years before he stepped into office. And it is kind of crazy because they are looking at him like it's this unique way. No, it's not. It's the same old, same old. I'm going to continue to read because this is where it gets a little bit wonky. All this is happening in the shadow of the early announcement of a minerals deal between the U.S. and the Ukraine, right? And I think in Trump's mind, I don't think that he's going to mine those minerals. Like, we have a lot of minerals here we haven't been able to mine because we just don't have the facilities or the way about doing it. It's really expensive. Who does? The Chinese. So we're trying to keep the Chinese from getting a hold of anything. In other words, if the Russians took this territory, right, then the idea is that the Russians would bring in the Chinese and contract it out to them. That's the argument that's going to be made. That's what you'll hear, and that's what they're going to kind of justify the sales of the weapons with. It's time for both of the nations in this conflict to come up with a concrete proposal on how this conflict ends. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce said of the minerals deal, support of another country can take many forms, and that's what this arrangement accomplishes. Wow, it's just crazy. Fighting is intensifying, and now the 3-year war between Russia and Ukraine. Russia drones attacked several cities in in Ukraine this week, and overnight, Moscow has claimed a Ukrainian drone attack left 7 people dead and wounded 20 in the Kherson region of Ukraine. Meanwhile, a Russian attack killed 2 people and injured 15 others in the Ukrainian city of Odessa, which is a city which it looks like at the end of the day, Russia is going to have that complete control of Odessa, and it's going to belong to them. So you can take that article down because it goes just more into, you can see how it goes posturing. But, the State Department person, and I want to point out, for me, I like to point out the perspective on how this affects the populist right, the populist left, the mainstream, the people, right? Like, I always want to talk about that. because I want to see people's reaction to it and what the majority of the citizens are saying. But they can throw these things out there and just get away with it. Now, the reason why I have the Kiev Post up there is because I want to point out something in the Kiev Post. The Kiev Post now, they're going to post this up. Obviously, a pro-Democrat, pro-Ukrainian paper. You can throw that up there, Jayme. The Kiev Post says, and that's the title, Trump okays first cash weapon sales to Kiev, partially lifts hold on Ukrainian military aid. So there's some other deals that are still continuing to go through. They're still kind of pushing that through. Remember, we got this mindset that Donald Trump is wagging his finger at Zelensky. A lot of people thought that, this was about Trump trying to kind of team up with Putin in some ways and make Zelensky come to the table. I don't think Zelensky can even make a deal that would allow Russia to keep Crimea and parts of the Donbass that have already taken without him getting killed by the Nazis in his government. I really don't think they can do that, Matt. I think they would kill him in 2 seconds. And we've seen this type of power they've had. One of the first videos we saw was Zelensky going to the front line and trying to tell a Ukrainian Nazi to stand down from bombing some cities. And they were arguing with him. Like, it was just kind of like, you're not my boss. I get my orders from somebody else. The guys you are, talking about. Now, the thing I want to talk about, if you go down to the sentence where it says Dr. Michael Cesari, the way they spin this, Matt, because I want you to know, I'm going to read these 2 paragraphs really quickly, and please help me out over here. Because when the Democrats or whoever does this, or the left-wing media, the ones who are pro-Ukrainian, when they see something like this happen, and they're going to try to turn shit into ice cream. Tell me how this makes sense to me, because I every time I read this makes no sense. But I brought this article because I wanted to point this out once again. How they're going to spin this. Dr. Michael Cesari, defense and security researcher at RAND, a nonprofit, nonpartisan research organization, believes that if U.S. military aid for Ukraine continues, whether it's continuing in the previous package or further existing presidential breakdown authority, which we see right now, it will strengthen U.S. leverage. The Trump administration has repeatedly communicated its desire for a lasting ceasefire in Ukraine. To achieve its goal will require leverage with both Kiev and Moscow, Dr. Cesari told the Kiev Post. How is giving weapons? Now, first off, there's some points to point out there, and Jayme, you can put the article down and put us up and make us nice and big. There are certain things to point down. Donald Trump said about a week ago, I don't know if you saw the clip, when a reporter was like, trying to get that gotcha moment of Donald Trump doing everything for Vladimir Putin. Well, what concessions is Putin offered you? I mean, you're going to make a deal over here. What concessions has he offered you? And he says, to not take the whole freaking country, you dummy. He didn't say those words per se, but he said to not take the whole country. Right now, Russia has not stopped moving forward on the front line, expanding it since Donald Trump has gotten office. People who said it was going to end it in 24 hours didn't know what was going on. Russia's had the same mentality, whether it be Joe Biden in office or Donald Trump. They're going to continue moving forward. There is no ceasefire in a Russian mind. There's a permanent ceasefire, an end to the situation, but they know a ceasefire will just give the Ukrainian military time to stop, rearm themselves using NATO, and then go back to work. Russia's not going to let that happen again. And it's also embedded into their constitution, I believe, that any territory that they have now captured will not be given up and given back to Ukraine. So a lot of people were saying at least Donald Trump's being realistic over here, but how does giving them weapons when you're supposed to be coming to a situation when all the fighting is supposed to end, how does that give the U.S. any leverage whatsoever with either Kiev or Moscow? I mean, it's obviously going to give leverage with them with Kiev, but definitely not Moscow. And guess what, Matt? The fighting still hasn't stopped on the front line. Russia keeps expanding. Go ahead, buddy.
Well, of course, it doesn't give any leverage to the U.S., but this is the same just insane narrative we've been hearing since the beginning of this thing, since February of 2022. You get these so-called quote unquote experts like this Dr. Cesari just to kind of give you this place to reference. So when you go on, the talking heads go on all the networks, and this includes all of them. This is Fox, CNN, MSNBC. They've been pushing this garbage for this entire way, and you get a guy like this doctor to say this is going to help the U.S., and then you just keep citing it until the next spin you got to do. So this is no different than any spin we've had throughout Biden's administration. So why are they doing this? It's to elongate something that inevitably is going to end, right? So how do we? So like you said, I believe, I agree with you. I think that that there is no ceasefire in a Russian's mind. There's no way that's happening. So this is the next best thing. It's elongating the situation, giving time to maneuver, keeping Zelensky alive for a little longer. At some point, we're going to have to, throw in the towel and say we got our mineral deals, we got this, we got something back for the U.S. We got to end this thing. Zelensky's life might be the thing that we have to, throw in the towel with, but maybe there's a way they can spin it that it's not the neo-Nazis that he can't control that are going to kill him. Maybe they can spin it another way that Putin got him or somebody else got him accidentally or whatever. Yeah. That's what they're working on, a way out. This is just an elongated strategy to keep referencing a professional, an expert who's telling the viewers, telling the American people that we still are getting something out of it and the U.S. is benefiting when they clearly aren't. But they haven't at all the entire way. That's the thing about it. So why not continue that strategy if it's worked this far? And you do have manufactured consent by more than half the country still on this. I do believe that if you poll people, you still have a certain amount of people with the Ukrainian flag in their social media profile that they can continue to BS the American people for a little bit longer.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy too as well. Talking about BSing the American people, Matt. Wait. Pasta. Vouch says that Russia is losing the war. I don't even hear that kind of rhetoric on mainstream media. They're not even talking about the front lines. They've abandoned it because they understand, because any idiot can look at the map and say, this is the territory that Russia gained a year ago. This is the territory they've gained today. This is where they're going to be within the next couple of weeks if they continue at this pace. And you see that Russia just keeps on gobbling up territory. And here's the thing that's going on. It's awesome to have Fiorella as a partner, especially when it comes to this subject, because she's got such a unique perspective about this whole situation. I think, and I've been watching a lot of Judge Napolitano when he has on the left. I call them the lefty ex-spooks, Ray McGovern and Larry Johnson, because they are obviously, I think they're the lefties. Them and John Kiriakou, right? Those are the lefties. Then he'll have on his other generals and his other spooks and that are ex-spooks that are more right-leaning, right? Like they have that right-leaning mentality. I would even call Douglas McGregor more right-leaning mentality, even though I think he's great because he's just one of my favorites. And if Donald Trump was serious about peace, he'd have that guy driving the bus. He hired him at the very end to try to get the troops out of Afghanistan when it was already too late. He didn't do anything. He didn't go to the bully pulpit. And that's something right now he's not doing right now. He's trying to abandon Congress and do work through executive orders. But that's not going to work. It's going to end up a lot in court. I know a lot of people point to Article 2, which allows the president to have executive orders. But when you start doing this, like when you're over the top, excessive amounts of them, you're removing what the marketing says is supposed to be in place when it comes to Congress and it comes to the Senate, and that's checks and balances. That's so one guy doesn't have too much power. You have other branches of government, and I'm not going to sit there and argue that a lot of the things they do, most of the things they do is wasting money and wasting time. But I don't want to destroy the whole system to where it's just giving one person power, and that's what it's meant to do. That's why they're doing it right now. That's what Trump's role is. And then, the final part when it comes to this segment, because we do have a lot of stuff to talk about today, is that a lot of people were pointing to the fact, and I was going to ask, going back to the Fiorella factor, is that we look at, from what Fiorella has told me, that there was some type of deal going on. What happened in Syria has something to do with what's going on in Ukraine, Russia. In other words, there's a deal. Mm-hmm. Turn your back on Assad. Let the Zionists take over the majority of Syria. And we'll scratch your back over with the Ukraine, Russia. But I always thought that wasn't enough to end the war. Thought maybe it was more. So my point was going to be, is this going to be one of those situations where America turns its back and walks away, which it has said before, Matt, like we can't, Marco Rubio said, we can't waste too much time on this. We got to, if we acting like they have no part in starting this war, but we got to let the two sides, Ukraine and Russia, come to the deal. If we can't do anything, we're out ski, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
Here it was reported by RT that the Defense Department and Washington has denied that it is walking away from negotiations. So trying to still finish that final thought about talking about Fiorella. I was asking Fiorella, is it possible that the United States was going to just walk away and allow Moscow to take all of Kiev? Like, would that have been the deal, to walk away from Syria? Because that seems like more of a balanced deal. Like, hey, I'm going to walk away from Syria. You take Syria, but you let us take Kiev. Because I just can't allow any type of government that's going to be loyal to Nazis, anti-Russian, to exist there. And that was the argument in which Donald Trump got mad at Putin. Because Putin was like, okay, so what are we doing with Zelensky? Once this guy out, maybe we can have a transitional government. Let's start there, and then we'll start making some deals. And Donald Trump was like, yeah, no. But wait a second, Donald Trump, you were just yelling at Zelensky on the floor. So I thought maybe the deal was Russia turns its back on Assad in Syria, and then the United States turns its back on Ukraine, and they let it take it. But now this coming in, the way United States is not going to walk away, they are giving the weapons over. I don't know if that's the case anymore. However, maybe this is just a way of wrapping this stuff up. I don't know. I just want this war to end, and I want the sanctions to end. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, no, the Syria thing was on point. I know, obviously, there was only a few people that got that, and we have to give credit to Fiorella for understanding that.
And Vanessa Beeley, yeah. I was living in Syria, by the way.
Right, exactly. And the idea that, we had a few others, like Caitlin Johnstone nailed this, but like, I think that the idea that it was supposed to be a reason to end the thing, I don't think I fully saw that way. I saw it as Syria was the reason we started it. We just didn't know why would we go in? Why would we allow NATO? Why would we allow ourselves to go into this thing that had no great end for NATO, no great end for the West? How were you going to spin this? There was no way out of it. And then we saw the driving out Assad that was like 11 days, and we took taking Syria on behalf of Israel. There it is. So the idea that we are doing these separate regime change wars and these separate little, upward transfer of wealth to the military industrial complex, and has nothing to do with Israel, is kind of preposterous when we understand that you kind of have to greenlight everything we do through that lens of greater Israel. So there you go. That's why we did it. Now, how do we get out of it? I think that's a different question that we need to answer. And we just have to look at this. How long are they going to extend it? And I don't think it has to do with Syria anymore. That was just the reason we were allowed to do it and push this to happen in the first place. So there's that exchange. Now we have to wait it out and say, well, where is this going? How do we what is the final point going to be? So let's just keep looking at it. But I think the Syria thing is already come and gone as far as why we got into it in the first place.
You think that Russia turning its back on Assad had anything to do with what's going on with Ukraine, Russia? Or?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's why we were allowed, I think, by the greater Israel idea that we were allowed to focus on Ukraine, was to drive Putin's attention over there, therefore opening up Syria and giving it another shot, because that ended up being something we did not successfully pull off the first time. We needed another go around. This is how you do it. It's a long game of chess. And that's what Fiorella talks about this all the time. We have to look at the long game of chess. We have to look at what's going on beyond Trump's second administration. We get so caught up in what's happening in these 4 years. What is he going to be responsible for or not responsible for? We have to look at future administrations. What do they have planned? They're 5-6 moves ahead. Beyond our ability to comprehend who's the next selected president, 2028, who's coming after that. What is the strategy moving forward on a larger chessboard? I think we have to be able to step back and look at that sometimes, not just in the immediate present of what's happening right now.
Yeah, I think Fiorella's, argument that no matter what, they might pause. The ceasefire that I talk about is just a pause, right? So the United States might pause on trying to balkanize Russia, but at the end of the day, they'll eventually get back to going after Russia and trying to balkanize it and take it. Regime change is the goal over there. Regime change is the goal in Iran. Now, not so much regime change. I think that, total devastation of Iran is the goal of the Zionists. You know what I'm saying? They don't want that country to ever exist, or at least be powerful. So, I mean, they might pause and move stuff around. Like you're saying, they got to look down the 4 or 5 administrations down the hole and see what's going on. But there's a greater plan is what is at stake sometimes, and we don't sometimes grasp that. Let's get to the next part, because these are the things that kind of just jump off the page to me, is how, how the populist right views their Don. And it is their Don, right? Jason Bassler put up a great tweet, and once again, you know, when you have people, for me, go ahead and put up this Jason Bassler tweet. For me, the thing that's great is I like to use this against the libertarians that, you know, went and supported Donald Trump. The people, the majority of the people who supported Donald Trump before all this stuff were going to support him no matter what. You know what I'm saying? Remember when he said in like the first administration, I can go and take a gun out and kill somebody on Fifth Avenue and nobody would do anything about it because they love me that much, right? So it's something I think he learned in the WWE. $5,000 checks. Remember that? We were supposed to get that, Matt, with Doge. Just kidding. End tips on tax. Taxes on tips is what they're saying. Once again, not the right argument. Again, who gets to keep those tips, how they get spent. That's the right argument. But no worry. He's going to end the tax on tips and let the people keep the majority of the money. Just kidding. Audit the Fed. Still waiting for that fucking Excel sheet there. Just kidding. Epstein files released. He was asked the other day. I don't know. You're going to ask the Secretary General. Ask Pam Bondi. But we did release everything on the RFK. And we did release everything on Martin Luther King. And those things are completely full. Top people came up and they looked in the White House and they saw the paperwork. They couldn't believe what we were releasing. But we released everything. Have the Pentagon spending. No, that's very much just kidding. They just approved, I believe, or they're going to approve a $1 trillion budget. End Ukraine war in 24 hours. Just kidding. Welcome to the new Ministry of Lies and Propaganda. I would say it's the same as the old Ministry of Lies. But, you know, I mean, don't ask a Trumper, man, right? And I want to point this out because this next tweet just shows you what Donald Trump's job is to do is his continuation of the last presidency, but he is very much paralleling with what Bernie Sanders did, is continuing to do. Keep people in the two-party duopoly. He sheepdogged so many people in the Democratic Party, Bernie Sanders, right? And Donald Trump, if he was serious about being an outside candidate or an independent, he would have started his own party. He didn't. He instead stayed in the Republican Party, and he's sheepdogging people into the Republican Party. So this right here, this tweet right here, and this is kind of sucky, right? Because they have their victory day. Go ahead, throw it up, Jayme. They have their victory day in Russia. Now, according to some numbers, I mean, anywhere, it depends where you look at it, anywhere between 20 to 40 million people were lost in Russia. Many of our allies and friends are celebrating the May 8th as Victory Day, but we did more than any other country by far in producing a victorious result on World War II. I am hereby renaming May 8th as Victory Day for World War II and November 11th as Victory Day for World War I. We won both wars, Matt. Nobody was even close in terms of strength, bravery, or military brilliance, but we never celebrate anything. That's because we don't have leaders anymore. It's people like Joe Biden in there and Barack Hussein Obama that know how to do so. So we are going to start. Is there anything else on the bottom there? We are going to start celebrating our victories again. Make victories great again. I mean, what Donald Trump is doing is keeping the scam alive. He's not changing anything. He's not an outside candidate. The elites are still getting their money. The 1% is still getting richer. BlackRock is still growing. You know what I'm saying? On top of it, the technocratic age, and I believe I made a tweet about it, he's ushered in the technocratic age. In fact, I'm going to pull up my thing real quick because I did it a couple days ago. But your thoughts, is Donald Trump an outside candidate?
No, this is exactly, look, he's aligned with the establishment 100% on this. It's funny to me because he's talking as if he just got out of a screening of Saving Private Ryan, where, you know, Spielberg and Hanks telling us the greatest generation ever. I saw that movie too, and I was just as excited about America's dominance and America is the good guy. Man, we are clearly the winners of World War II. That's what I saw on the big screen. So it's theater, right? We understand this theater. I don't know if is he getting the pushback from his base on this? I don't know, but for me, it's funny that he aligns with establishment talking points, and I'm shocked that Hollywood didn't embrace him more because he's such a great mouthpiece. These type of truth social posts, they fit that narrative of American exceptionalism, and I'm surprised that Tom Hanks, Matt Damon, and Steven Spielberg aren't standing next to him going, right on, man. That's what we're telling you. That's how it is, you know?
Well, so there was the post, and obviously somebody from World War II, the Eastern Front, got mad. You did not do more than any other country, you stupid bitch. The Soviet Union did. And you just talk to historians. I think that the United States lost close to 300,000 in troops, right?
Mhm.
Something like that. Like 500,000 total people. I don't know.
I think it was just under 500,000.
Under 500,000, right? So, those are by like fluffed up numbers. At the Battle of Stalingrad, the Russians lost 1,000,000.
Yep.
A mil. At that one battle alone.
One battle.
And like I said, there are numbers up to close to 20 million. Nobody can talk about the sacrifice they made. And on the East, the way they closed in on the East, where the majority of the German forces were, the United States, we killed a lot of civilians, right? We killed civilians in Japan. We killed civilians in Dresden. We're not short of that. But anyways, underneath that tweet, when he put many of our allies and friends are celebrating May 8th as Victory Day, I said, all of you who thought that you were supporting an outsider in Donald Trump got played. The thing that makes his presidency extremely dangerous is that he has fooled so many of you to stay within the same system the ruling class has and still controls. Basically, he delivered the globalists a status quo, keeping the two-party illusion. Even worse, he is ushering in the Great Reset, and you are praising him. Wake up, America. Your thoughts on that, because not only is he keeping us in keeping the right and all these MAGA media personnel who Donald Trump is doing this, Donald Trump is doing that, which is not media, right? The job of the media is to hold power accountable. You can't be a cheerleader and be considered media. But not only is he doing that, and the Democrats played their part, right? They did their job. They were so over the top, ridiculous. They try to bring the state into the family dynamic where the state is going to make decisions about your child, not you. Not you, the parent, not just nuts. And that wasn't going to play over well. But he's also ushering in the fourth industrial revolution. He's ushering in the Great Reset. We are moving forward to real IDs. That program's going forward. Nobody started. That's supposed to start Wednesday at the airports. The real ID. If you don't have your real ID, I don't know what they're going to do right now. You can pay a fine. You got to do a list. You got to make a pinky swear promising that you're going to get it. I don't know if my passport's going to fill in enough for my real ID. I don't know what that's supposed to be, but they say after a while you have to get a real ID no matter what. They're putting Republicans on the grid now, and they're using immigrants and terrorists as a way of doing it. Let's not forget, on day 2, and had the Democrats done this, Donald Trump stood up there, talked about major investments in Starlink, Star Wars, Star whatever, but it was Oracle. It was, all these guys. Sam Altman was up there too as well, with Larry Ellison. It had any Democrat done that, they would have been flipping their lids, but not instead of just flipping their lids now, Matt, they're praising it. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah. No, and look, I got let's back up to the fake. So these are the Trump fake outs, the things he ran on, and then he does it's the bait and switch. He does the opposite. I'm going to give him credit for running on these things and to remind people why they voted for him and why he's in his second term right now. This is because these issues as campaign issues, as again, this is packaging for the campaign trail. These little one-liners like anti-war president, and then we talk about that whole list from earlier, the $5,000 checks, the ending tip taxes. He faked out all the Democratic talking points. He faked them out. Tip tax, auditing the Fed, all this stuff, all the files, the Epstein files, not just the Epstein files, JFK files, all this stuff. This is all happening. Everything's going to happen. Let's give him credit. The Ukraine war, 24 hours. Let's give him credit because the Democrats won't even BS us with things they're going to run on and make us vote for them. We never even get them to fake it. Weren't we at a point at one point where we said, hey, Bernie, can't you just get Joe Biden to at least lie to us and tell us he's going to run on Medicare for all? Just lie to us. Give us a reason to at least go through the motions of saying, okay, you got something for our vote. So at least you give him credit that he runs a solid campaign, runs on these issues. He bait and switched everyone. They should be furious. I see half of the MAGAs are getting furious. That's great. But even with all of that, even with all this crazy bait and switch, Craig, it's still better than the Democrats not even running on anything. So they should take a lesson from him on at least lying to us about the things they care about, like ending wars and Medicare for all and all the other labor rights issues. Like, give us something. So at least the people that voted for a Democrat, voted for Kamala or whoever they're going to prop up AOC next time, at least we will forgive them for their mistake. Right now, you can't even to vote Democrat right now. You can't even forgive it because there's nothing there to say, what are you voting for?
Yeah.
At least Trump lied to his people and said we're going to do something. So now we're seeing the results of that. But I just wanted to make that distinction. That's how bad Trump is. That's how even more bad the Democrats are.
Yeah. Well, they're running on Trump's a fascist.
Yeah.
That's all they got. That's all they can run. They can't run on anything. They got to run against stuff. Now, let's get to it. We talked about these things. So now we've established they have all these things. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. I pointed out that comment about World War II is that he's keeping the empire dream alive, right? Like, in other words, when you hear a lot of people talk out against Mao and you talk about against Stalin, I think in a lot of ways they're trying to justify the empire's decisions as the lesser of two evils. Yeah, we dropped 2 bombs on innocent civilians in Japan, mostly women and children, but we had to end the war. And, besides, look what Mao's doing. Look how many people he's killing. Look at Stalin, how many people he killed. It's way more than we did with the bomb. I think that's what they're always trying to sell us. I think that Donald Trump is keeping that game alive. Like, he's keeping the Make America Great Again. And I want to do a segment on this and talk about that, what that really means and what it's meant to be. And the people who have a serious pushback against that, right? I don't want to get into it right now because that can be its whole segment. But what does that really mean? Make America Great Again. When we were bombing people and the empire was expanding, what part of you talking about America being great again? I think you have to put that out there. So how, when you grab the New York Times, I don't know if you know this, I'm a newspaper guy. I grab the Times and the Post, so I get one on one side, one on the other. And I don't know, ladies and gentlemen, I want to hear from you out there. Which one do you think is more ridiculous, the synthetic left or the synthetic right? Because it's kind of funny the way they go about things. But this, I want to point out for Trump supporters, exciting first 100 days. I asked my mom's friend the other day, we were talking, and she's like, I like Trump. I said, even everything that's going on, even the fact that he's, thrown away the 4th Amendment, the 5th Amendment, they're gone, unreasonable search and seizures, due process is a thing of old. Now he's just doing all these things on its own. I mean, he's arresting judges. You're good with this? Why? Why are you good with this? Because I think Donald Trump's an American, is what she told me. I don't know what that means. Well, he's getting rid of a lot of the immigrants that are here illegally. Once again, believing that that's a huge problem. And he keeps hitting that bell, that illegal immigrant bell, like it's, and I don't know why people are so uber focused on it, but he's going after the Chinese who've taken advantage of us for so long, which we'll get into the tariff wars. I knew that there would be like people who, no matter what, like, because we saw them during Barack Obama, no matter how bad he did, they would make excuses for him. So the same thing would happen for Trump people. But look at some of the excuses, because this is the part that really drives me crazy. For Trump supporters, an exciting first 100 days, the president's supporters acknowledged that the ride is bumpy, but they say they are willing to sacrifice it and wouldn't have it any other way. In other words, no matter what, at least it's somebody different, Matt. It's not the same old, same old. Donald Trump has to suspend your 4th Amendment rights and the 5th Amendment, but, it's doing something, and everybody in the blob was always doing the same old thing. For those tens of millions of Americans who regard President Trump's bull in a China shop decade of political life as a waking nightmare, what may be hardest to fathom is that tens of millions of their fellow citizens, have viewed the very same spectacle and have said, in effect, we're fine with it. And so it continues. Hundreds of days into Donald Trump's tumultuous second term, 42% of those in a recent New York Times Siena poll not only approve of the job he's doing as president, but describe his time in the White House so far as it's exciting. Yeah, it's craziness, Matt, but it's exciting because it's different. And somebody's trying to level the playing field for us. So what if it's another one of those billionaires? He cares about us. True. Only 43% of the voters in the poll view him favorably compared to 56% who view him unfavorably. Mr. Trump is also faring worse in the polls than any other modern president in his first 100 days. And yet, in the midst of a second-term chaos, Mr. Trump has suffered only a modest decline from the 48% of voters who viewed him favorably in the final Times Siena poll before the November election. The numbers underscore that the durability of his appeal for his base can't be ignored any more than Mr. Trump himself. He's doing so much that the Democrats can't keep up, said Maria Lebecki, a 68-year-old representative who was at the president's rally in Warren, Michigan on Tuesday night. It's awesome. What about all those things? You got to stir up the pot, Matt. Whether or not Mr. Trump succeeds in his policy aims, he is once again the dominant force in American political life. Washington insiders could once shrug off his impressiveness of the laws of political gravity as a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence like a two-headed cow. No longer. Now that same establishment has been forced to consider the possibility that whatever Mr. Trump's answers may be, many Americans think he is asking some of the right questions. The New York Times spoke with close to 20 supporters of Donald Trump from across the country, including several who had participated in that Times Siena survey. Many of them described the start of Donald Trump's second terms with the pronounced enthusiasm as a noticeable improvement over the previous one. When he came in the first time, he had no idea how bad things in Washington were. He got ripped off big time, said Barbara Hahn, a retired anesthesiologist from Camden County, Georgia. This time around, he's much more driven and focused. Several approvingly cited Mr. Trump's senior staff and cabinet secretaries as telegenic loyalists who would not thwart the president's agenda, as a number of his first-time appointees did. The people he chose for his administration, they're like the Avengers, Ms. Libicki said. This is an anesthesiologist. This is a doctor, right? Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Mark Rubio, they are just awesome, every single one of them. She added, referring to the Attorney General, the FBI Director, and the Secretary of State. Others applauded his new administration frenetic locomotion. He basically stopped all the illegal immigrants from coming in about 2 weeks, said Bodie Caitlin, a former truck accessory dealer living in Highlands, North Carolina. Illegal border crossings significantly slowed in the last year under the Biden administration, then plummeted even further when Trump took office. I like the way that the leftist newspapers got to point out the fact that, hey, illegal immigration was already slowing down. They're not leftists. Mr. Caitlin added that everyone I know thinks this way, that Trump has done more in his 100 days than Biden did in 4 years. Still, some of Trump's supporters suggested that he might moderate his pace. His starts have been a bit disjointed, trying to do so much too soon, said Michael Craig, a retired upholstery businessman from Woodford County, Illinois. Another Trump voter, Dwayne Keith, 41, an engineer living in eastern Alabama, expressed reservations about Mr. Trump's plan to dismantle the Department of Education. Okay, so here's a guy with a little sense. And this is a great comment. He should be looking for ways to improve our educational system, not tear the whole system, not tear the whole thing down, Mr. Keith said. Mr. Trump has succeeded in politics, his supporters suggest, because of his skills he developed in his first profession. He's a businessman, Matt, said John Richmond, a 57-year-old software development in Coweta County, Georgia. And this is a capitalist country. And so he understands the U.S. better than Biden, who never worked in the private sector. It is also the case that Mr. Trump spent much of his adult life tirelessly cultivating an image as Americans' quintessential dealmaker, despite the multiple bankruptcies of his companies, well before well before he began his candidacy in 2015 by promising to take the brand of the United States and make it great again. Mr. Trump had cemented his own brand nationwide in large parts throughout the reality show, The Apprentice. Charlie Kirk, a 31-year-old conservative influencer who's close to the president, has recalled that when he was in high school in Illinois, the president was the only billionaire his fellow students could name. Most of the Heartland thought of him as an American capitalism defined, Mr. Kirk said. Mr. Caitlin, the former truck accessory dealer, falls into that group. Everyone knows that Trump is a master negotiator and a deal maker, he said. The president's reputation has in turn brought Mr. Trump from the time from his voters. The president's reputation has in turn brought Mr. Trump time from his voters as he seeks to remake the global economy by imposing historically high tariffs on Americans' closest allies, which he has roiled the financial markets and intensified fear of a recession and inflation. I'm going to go sacrifice, said John Lowell, a 63-year-old carpenter who was at Mr. Trump's rally on Tuesday. Do what we have to do. I don't buy Chinese crap anymore there, Matt. Jayme, you don't buy that Chinese crap. Other supporters say that they're willing to defer to the president's judgment on the matter. I think a lot of us who voted for Donald Trump did so because of his business acumen, said Douglas Williams, a 56-year-old banker and cattle rancher in rural Missouri. I'm not buying any beef from this guy, and I trust his business sense more than I trust my own. So I'm willing to ride it out for a while. I'm going to stop there because it just goes into more of the same, but you can see the way they're praising him. They're making excuses for him. I know it's more of the same, but this has a different little twist on it because where Donald Trump comes from, because he is not coming from the same ilk as before. Matt, your thoughts on people making excuses for him? I mean, he has also, you got to give him credit, he has that his own media brand behind him too as well, pushing to support all his moves, whether or not it's a complete lie or it's more the truth.
Well, look, Pasta, I'll say this. First of all, hearing these people speak, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Obama supporters. It reminds me of there's a lot of feelings involved, right? There's a lot of excitement. It's exciting. And so there's these colorful language. It's not so much, a lot of those people didn't have so much to say about the policies themselves, but more about the feeling and the idea that he feels like a businessman. He feels like somebody who knows how to make a deal, making a deal. These are all feelings. And, I will point out this. I'm a little not shocked, but I'm like, interesting that the New York Times is interviewing people and getting their thoughts on why they voted for the guy and what they think about, because they weren't really interested in that leading up to the election. They just wanted to tell us it's because half the country was racist and sexist. They weren't ready for a woman president. So I think it's interesting they actually are giving a little bit of breathing time and a little bit of some hey, what do you think about the guy you voted for? So that's funny. They're doing it now. But you're not going to hear anybody. They're not going to print anything in the New York Times about people that voted because they cared about our health and our food and they thought RFK Jr. could do something for the Maha movement. They're not going to print that. And they're certainly not going to print anything about people saying I voted for Trump because he's just hands down better than anything the Democrats had to offer. And we needed to punish the Democratic Party. So you're not going to hear any of that. But I'll say this again, back to the Obama comparison. This is what we're seeing. We're seeing people that have a lot of ego, a lot of pride, a lot of feelings. And they're not going to let them go, especially not 100 days into office. I still talk to people that think Obama was the greatest thing ever, and they can't tell me why, other than he looked like us. He made us feel good. So I'm seeing a very similar kind of attitude about these feelings that make you feel good when you sit back, you close your eyes and you go, we got the right guy in there because he makes me feel good. And he's doing a good job just because I feel like he is. That's what we're seeing here. So that's where we're at now. And again, I'm happy the New York Times is giving some people a chance to talk about it, but most of them are deluded. They're caught up in this emotion, and I don't think they're gonna let it go anytime soon.
Yeah, it's a good point to point out that people with Obama that we knew from the left, right now that we're homeless, kind of the same type of rhetoric, right? They can't explain to you why they like Obama. In fact, I think Trump supporters can explain better than Obama supporters can explain to why they like their guy. The Orange Jesus supporters are better explaining why they like Orange Jesus better than Black Jesus supporters. And that's the truth, man, because everything is tied. And until people stop looking at these, what's the word I want to use? Well, I really don't mean these just synthetic issues. Like they don't mean anything really. They're just, like you said, it's about feelings, and they start looking at policy, right? It's never going to change, but that's the ruling class and the social engineers. They understand who they're dealing with. They understand who they have to fix. And we did make a point. I think we said it last time we did something together, was on your show, that the media now on the left is not as being as harsh on Donald Trump, right? Yep. They're still there, but they're not full blown. He's a Nazi. He's an authoritarian. They are leaking that in here and there, but there's a lot of kind of like support and consensus on the left because of his Zionist stance and his, not ending the Ukraine war in 24 hours, now giving him weapons and stuff. So that's, justifying some of the mainstream media on the left, all their reasons they said for years. Donald Trump is actually going along, and he's echoing some of the same.
I want to jump in and say, just to be like the spin, we saw Rachel Maddow, the spin is he's actually not good at being a fascist. So she's like, they're laughing about it now. It's not a scary thing. It's not, hey, the world ended Trump, the next Hitler's in office and the world's over. They're laughing about the fact that he's not the fascist they told us he was because he's ineffective. That's their spin, just to be clear right now.
Well, Jayme made a great point here because it says a lot of these Trump supporters will realize how wrong they were about 5 years after he's out. Well, this is the thing, Jayme. It didn't, and this is why I have such a hard time with trying to tell these Trump supporters, hey, man, you're wrong, because we had our Obama. I voted for Obama a second term, and I had enough evidence there after his first presidency, his first term, to realize that this guy was no good. He's not doing things that are adequate or really pro-peace. And in fact, his foreign policy was such a disaster. And then his economic policies were dictated by Wall Street, which was what we had put him in there, right, to overturn. But we kept on making excuses. I kept on making excuses, playing the lesser of two evils. So I have a hard time telling a Trumper saying, hey, man, you need to stop playing the lesser of two evils here. This guy is not doing anything good. In fact, he's pushing back against everything, the reason why you put him in there. Remember, we wanted to stop more than anything the Great Reset, the technocratic age. Now we're moving, advancing ahead of it, where the point is he's got the Neuralink guy running a lot of his economic policies, or at least trying to fool you that they're coming up with money. And they're not telling you how they're reappropriating things.
No.
And the peace president's defense budget is through the roof, and it's gone. It's crazy. So a lot of these things this guy was put there for, that you said you standed for him. You know, I have a fun time on my radio show with this, because a lot of times these people, they're just talking out there, you know what? And we're watching Rome crumble right in front of us.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the tariff war, because Donald Trump is having a tariff war with guess who?
China.
China. Now, I don't know about you, but if all we have to do is look to his first term. Now, I said this before. He's trying, let's say for argument's sake, that Donald Trump is being sincere in trying to balance out the trade deficit, right? That for years there was a bad trade deficit. In my mind, China didn't steal one job, right? He has this mentality that China is an unfair player. They've been manipulating the system. It was the bad management of the empire that allowed them to do it. And now I'm going to make things whole by making China pay their fair share, and they're going to stop with their tariffs, whatnot. He never mentions the fact, and this is what, once again, keeping the scam alive, that it was the empire that exploited all this cheap labor. We paid high prices on the cheap goods that they have. Yeah, they benefited too, but what did they do? They gave their citizens roads, schools, healthcare, jobs, food. We didn't do that, and we'll get into that. So now you have this whole tariff war where a lot of people, and even a friend of mine who's a politician, I'm not going to say where, was talking about like what Donald Trump's doing against China is great. I'm like, are you guys really playing this? Once again, he's keeping the scam alive. He's not putting blame on those who need blame. You don't blame China for the issues in the trade deficit. You blame the oligarchs and Wall Street who took advantage of the whole situation. So once again, the New York Post, right? The other side of the coin. Now, I asked earlier in the show which one sounds a little bit more balanced and which one sounds a little bit more obscure, a little bit crazy. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to do that, because, well, I'm not going to give my opinion. I'm going to let you say yours, and I'm going to give you that opportunity. Let's put up the New York Post direct hit, right? So now Donald Trump failed in his first term as presidency when he slapped tariffs on China. China was like, we'll just wait you out. We don't need you anymore. Put it up, Jayme. We control. Go down a little bit so you can see it. The name direct hit. No, the other way. Go up. Excuse me. New York Post. You don't have the direct hit there. Yeah, it says it on the in the newspaper version. Direct hit. Can you see that? Direct hit. So in the first term, he put tariffs on China. Now, a lot of people can say, well, listen, I respect the fact that he's trying to do specific tariffs to bring some form of manufacturing back home to the United States. We don't make anything anymore. We don't fix anything. So I appreciate that he's doing that to try and get some manufacturing to come home. It didn't work. And eventually they made a deal and they were done shaking hands. Despite their denials, China is losing the tariffs war and retreating as fast as they can. Listen to this. This is by Stephen W. Mosher. So I'm going to pull it up myself. Here we go. As President Trump brings manufacturing back to the U.S., stop. Right there. Right? Go get it on screen. Jayme, get it on screen. First sentence. Jayme, do you want me to do it? Okay, as President Trump brings manufacturing back to the U.S. and closes in on a trade deals with India, Japan, and South Korea, China's days as the world's factory floor are numbered, and Beijing is furious. Now, I don't care what you're doing. The fact that you would put that in the first line, that Trump is bringing back manufacturing to the U.S. right out the gate, I don't think this thing would have made the Inquirer 10 years ago. Like they would have said, I don't know if we can print this. This is how bad this is. How could they say these things? But this is what the right does. The right does this all the time. Let's go up to the next paragraph and continue to read into this. All right, I'll just put it in there. In a move harking back to the Cultural Revolution. Look, I mean, look at that sentence right there. Chinese school children are being taught to hate the U.S. Class time is devoted to shouting anti-American slogans like China must win the U.S.-China trade war. I mean, this is just fucking nuts if you ask me. China's foreign ministry even released a video claiming that China won't kneel down to the U.S., warning that bowing to U.S. hegemony would be like drinking poison. At the BRICS meeting in Rio this week, Foreign Minister Wang Yi talked tough as well as silence or retreat will only embolden the bullies. But it turns out, in secret, Beijing has been quietly retreating as fast as it can. I don't know where they get this information. Sources, please. Trump divulged in Time magazine interview on April 25th that China's Xi Jinping contacted him directly about tariffs and later affirmed that he has since spoken with the Chinese dictator many times. Listen to how that whole fucking sentence goes, which, by the way, and really quickly, if it says that he was talking to China, right? Remember they had those interviews real quick where they said, oh my God, Donald Trump is talking to China. And they were like, oh, so when did you talk to him? And he was dancing around with it, right? He wasn't giving the exact times. But check this out real quick. China rejects Trump's claim that Xi has called him by phone. I'm not going to get into it, but there was a whole talk, and they asked him, well, when did he call you? When did he contact you? We've been talking. He was trying to talk in holes and stuff. We've been talking. Go back to the other article. We've been talking here and there. Like, have you? Because we're not seeing that here, and the Chinese are denying that you were talking to him. And we found out it was a lie. The Korean press has confirmed. The Korean press, Matt. South Korea, I bet, that the United States and China have begun a behind-the-scenes contact in relation to the tariff war, and the high-ranking Chinese delegation was photographed entering the U.S. Treasury Department in the early mornings of April 24th. At least they put some bullshit behind it to talk about, to back up their QAnon stories. This is almost like a QAnon article. The hush-hush negotiations over trade have already begun to bear fruit, and China unilaterally reducing its punitive tariffs on 131 American goods. Not surprisingly, the regime continues to lie to the Chinese people about and the world about all of this. Guan Kaihong, an official with the Chinese Foreign Ministry, has repeatedly claimed that no tariff negotiations have taken place. They keep on denying it, and there's no proof that they have been talking about it. Any suggestion otherwise is groundless and fake news, said Guo, who urged the U.S. to stop misleading the public. And they said that they need to stop misleading the public. There's been no talks on tariffs. Understand that the public that Guo is worried about misleading does not live in America, but in China. You see, China's state media has portrayed Xi Jinping as heroically standing up to Donald Trump. The Chinese have been told not only did their stalwart leader among all world leaders match Trump's tariffs with his own, but that he has stood strong and has never, ever backed down. Think of how much face Xi Jinping will lose when the Chinese people learn that he, after grandstanding on tariffs, has caved. But Xi Jinping has, and for good reason. The signs of the Chinese impending economics collapse is everywhere. Do you hear this, dude? I mean, they're trying to make it sound like Donald Trump came in, waved his magic wand, and all of a sudden it put the Chinese on their back heels. They're backfooting. They're backpedaling, trying to stop everything that's going on. The signs of the Chinese impending economic collapse are everywhere. Now listen what they're saying. And you answer these questions real quick, one by one, to think if this is possible, if you'd like, or I can finish reading them. There are huge piles of containers that missed the April 9th tariff deadline sitting in Chinese ports. These are filled with goods that the tariffs have priced out of the U.S. market. Meanwhile, cargo bookings for container voyages between China and the U.S. are down by half. Do you want to say anything about that? Do you think personally, when you think about, all right, tariffs come into play, how much money China has, what big of an economic power they have, that one form of tariffs is going to sack the whole Chinese fucking trade market? And let's not forget, they do sell us about 16% of the stuff, close to 20% of the stuff they sell to the United States. But is that going to sack the whole Chinese economy? Donald Trump's tariffs alone, and what Stephen Mosher is saying.
Well, look, I'm not going to be able to say 100% for sure, Craig, that I know that they're not down by half like the article says. But what I do have, critical thinking skills, and I can see the entire article is just loaded with propaganda, and it's targeting a base that already believes this stuff. So I don't think they're going to change any new people's minds. But this is about riling up the base that China's being weakened here, which is my best guess is no, not at all, in no way, shape, or form. And it reminds me of the same plan against Russia. We're getting the Democratic base to think that we were going to stick it to Putin, and the economy was going to crumble with the Ukraine war. And like it's a complete joke. And I don't understand why we can't just get out of this realm of believing this garbage, which obviously a lot of MAGAs believe this crap, but just get them out of it and say, no, none of this is true. We know none of this is true. We know that the sentiment of the Chinese people, they're not being taught in school about we're going to win the trade. That's not happening. It's like, that's as ridiculous as death to America. It's like, that's not happening. There's actually the opposite is happening. There's connections going on online, social media. We're having discussions. They're trying to share. Chinese citizens are trying to share with American citizens the realities of the things that we've been deprived of on purpose in our education system. So we know all this. I don't know if the base will ever figure this out, especially with garbage like coming from this post article is going to continue to rile up the base like this. But you and I mean, we obviously know, and our viewers know.
This is the New York Post. This is the New York Post, and this is, like I said, this wouldn't even make the Enquirer 20 years ago. There are in deserted factory floors all along the coast of China where workers are being laid off by the tens of thousands because of this one thing. This is just ridiculous. Textile, toy, electronic, and furniture factories are just a few of the industries being crushed by tariffs. I mean, come on. You think that these one set of tariffs are going to just ruin the whole Chinese economy? They can wait you out. They did it on the first presidency. There are empty streets and shuttered shops of all surrounding industrial towns and cities whose one-time customers, the now unemployed factory workers, can't afford to eat or shop in their favorite noodle stand or convenience stores. I like the fact he put noodle stand in it. But, I mean, these are the things that he is talking about. This is what's going on in China. Their economy is ready to fall. I don't know why the Chinese people are the target. The Chinese government is the target rather than our own oligarchs who ruined this economy over here, who took the manufacturing and sent it out, all to exploit cheap labor around the world. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. Well, and the other part that the Post will never mention is why is China such a huge problem for us in the first place? Is because they haven't spent the last several decades invading and occupying other nations and using taxpayer money to justify regime change wars. They haven't invaded one country, by the way, in our entire life. That's never happened. So what do you think happened to their economy in the meantime? So the fact that we're not having that discussion is insane to me. And the fact that this idea, again, back to the idea that they are being conditioned to hate us, that's ridiculous. This entire article is total BS. And if anything, what social media is helping us do, and the Gen Z generation, is understand the part about our education system that deprived of this information. And if anything, we should take an example from China and try to apply it here so we can start having, our society kind of upgrade in its infrastructure, and we can help out our homeless problem, all this stuff that the Post will never talk about. So these are the things like we can see from our vantage point. But, maybe it's our job to hit over the head the MAGAs and let them know you've been played, just like the Democrats were played by the Russia scam. This is also a scam, and you need to wake up and get out of it. None of this is real.
Yeah. It's a scam on this side, scam on that side. America is by far China's largest customer, which is a lot of people still the reason why they think that China needs us. There's new customers out there, guys. There's new customers. absorbing about 1/6 of China's exports. If the tariffs stay in place for any length, economists estimate, what economists? That 80% of Chinese goods will be priced out of the American market, representing a loss of almost $400 billion. Now, I do believe in time there are other places we can buy things from, like, India, maybe some parts of Brazil. But this is the part that really gets me. As many as 10 million Chinese workers might lose their jobs over the next few weeks. 10 million, says Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. A number that could easily double in the months that follow as the ripple effects of the slowdown tear through the economy. Beijing's biggest worry is not the tariff recession, but the social unrest that will follow, Matt. Now, Matt, you were saying that we have to explain to these people that it's a hustle. Donald Trump, once again, with this mentality, is still trying to keep the propaganda alive, the scam of America alive. Make America great again. We got to be great again. We used to not let people take advantage of us. Now they're taking advantage of us. It's not the system that's bad. It's the management. And I'm going to bring in new people with myself, and the management is going to be great by using these same tactics, bullying people, using lobbying tariffs like sanctions, pricing people out. But at the end of the day, lifting those tariffs because you won't hold me accountable for anything, right? And I could have just, the fact that I made the move is enough for you to say, well, he's shaking things up like we saw in the New York Times article. Okay, so what is the hustle? Let's show this video from TikTok over here because this is the greatest video I've seen out there. This is the exact truth. Just tell me where the lie is in this statement, in this video. See if you can pump it up as loud as you can, Matt, and play this video. And go ahead.
They rob you blind and you thank them for it. That's a tragedy. That's a scam. That's why I'm saying this right now. Americans, you don't need a tariff. You need a revolution. For decades, your government and oligarchs ship your job to China, not for diplomacy, not for peace, but to exploit cheap laborers. And in the process, they hollowed out your middle class, crushed your working class, and told you to be proud while they sold your future for profit. And yes, China made money, but we used it to build roads, lift millions out of poverty, fund healthcare, raise living standard. We reinvested in our people. My family also benefited from it. What did your oligarchs do? They bought yachts, private jets, mansions with golf course driveways. They manipulate the market, dodge tax, and poured billions into endless wars. And you get stagnated wages, crippling healthcare costs, cheap dopamine, debt, and flag wave property made in China while they pick your pocket. For 40 years, both China and the United States benefit from the trade, the manufacturing, but only one of us use that wealth to build. This isn't China's fault. This is yours. You let this happen. You let the oligarchs fit your lies while they made you fat, poor, and addicted. Now they blame China for mess they made. I don't think so. I don't think you need another tariff. You need to wake up. You need to take your country back. I think you need a revolution.
Wow. Tell me where the lie is, Matt.
Wow.
Tell me where the lie is. There is one lie there, but I don't know if it's a lie, but it's a mishap.
There might be something worth discussing. But the point is a guy like this talking from an honest place, an honest perspective. He's not obviously not paid for by any party, any person here, any billionaire here. He's on his own telling, and he's getting incredible views. And I don't think it's just on the YouTube. I think that video has gone on multiple social media platforms. So people are seeing this stuff. And I think the only thing a Trump administration can do, and a Western media propaganda machine can do, is ignore this discussion, not have the discussion. Yeah. But I'm interested in some pushback you have on it. But like we have to acknowledge this.
There's not much pushback. The only pushback I have, it wasn't billions in wars, it was trillions in wars.
Ah, there it is.
That's from coming from Judge Napolitano, and it was so funny when he said it because I said the same thing. I'm like, maybe trillions in wars. Yep. No, trillion, and he said the same thing. It's kind of funny. The only problem is that we didn't spend billions on war. We spent trillions. Thank you, CheeseSlice must have put that up there. And that's the truth. But everything else he's saying is 100%. We got to take our government back. You know, we don't need, and that's the whole thing. This is why Donald Trump was brought in, because he had practice. He moved people a certain way. He duped a lot of people. Yeah. Same way that Obama duped a lot of people on the left. Donald Trump duped a lot of independents and people on the right. I mean, half the libertarian brass was voting for this guy because Chase Oliver wore a mask at Thanksgiving a couple years ago. But I mean, seriously, it's just crazy the way he's keeping this scam alive, saying that China's the problem. China's not the problem. It was our Wall Street that was the problem. China didn't steal one job. Wall Street did. China didn't send, ship these jobs over to them. Wall Street shipped them over. China didn't set us with debt and put us in hungry and unhealthy and stuff. It was our people, Wall Street, and the ruling class who did so. So to me, that was one of the greatest things I've seen out there in quite some time, but people aren't doing that. By the way, I want to show a video of the guy who wrote the crap in Stephen Moser in the New York Post. But I know you got to get out of here. You got a hard out in 9 minutes, but I wanted to ask real quickly, which one, New York Post, New York Times, which one was more off the rocker?
In this particular situation, I'm going to give the crown to the Post on being more off the rocker this time.
Yeah, the right media is so QAnon-y, it's ridiculous. Like they're touching into the cultural revolution. Let's go full screen on this guy, Stephen Moser. You can tell he's a Bannon guy just by talking about the cultural revolution. I mean, this is historic times. Let's get the video up, Jayme. Jayme, you up? You there? What's wrong with this dude?
He's on it.
Jeez, there we go. Get it up full screen.
So we come back to 2019. And by this time, a year after the signing of the agreement, churches are being torn down. Convents that are being built for orders of underground nuns are being demolished. Shrines that have existed in China for hundreds of years are being demolished. Statues are being torn down. And worst of all, priests and bishops of the underground church are being forcibly brought into meetings with Chinese communist officials, at which they are required to, quote, register with the government, which actually means registering as members of the Catholic Patriotic Association, which is run by and for the Chinese Communist Party, and which is officially in schism with Rome. That is to say, they are being required to join a schismatic organization, dividing the church. So we come back to 2019.
There it is. Right. Once again, this guy right here, and this is he's on, Steve Bannon's network. China, they always love to go to the cultural and the religious persecutions of China. Our friend Don DeBar went to China with Cynthia McKinney, and they went to Xinjiang region, the West China region, to see if there was a oppression on the Uyghur people and whatnot. Didn't find it. Didn't see it. It's all made up. They saw mosque and they saw temples, not just Catholic churches or Christian churches or anything like that. There is no religious persecution in China. It's all made up. But yet this guy goes on TV and he uses that because it emotionally moves people, Matt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, it reminds me of we gotta go through the streets of Iraq and throw Bibles at Iraqis. You remember that? So there's this sense of we're this religious. What do you call it? This is it's a mission. What was that? It's when it becomes a biblical purpose, and it goes beyond all the economic discussions and all that. It's like it becomes this like right to do this and to help these people. The whole thing's made up, completely made up. What a scam. And you're right, like these networks, and we just had this discussion about the Post and the Times, and like it's just like, man, we're in this time right now where the right, what you call populist news outlets on the right are just going batshit crazy, I have to say, with their angling and spinning of why Trump is the savior, and to use religious speak now, it kind of keeps him at this level, this untouchable level of savior sent here from above to do the holy thing that needs to be done. And you can't argue that because it's all feelings and it just feels good. So that's what they're running on. And it's pretty remarkable.
I'm with you, Matt. The right seems more ridiculous and craziest. Evangelical is what Cam Schwarry.
There it is.
It's an evangelical mission. And yeah, they brought it into that. So this is the last thing I'm going to show Matt before he gets on out of here. It's the last section of the day. I was also going to put up there really quickly about Marjorie Taylor Greene because I wanted to have a discussion about it. And I can't have that discussion without you. But let's put up the settler, because you brought to your show The Settler, and we started talking about The Settlers, which was a hour and 2-minute movie that was on Twitter. It's a BBC journalist, I believe, and it was really fucking hard. But the guy who was one of the guys, and I kept saying as I'm watching this, I say, when this movie is done and it comes out, they're going to retaliate against this guy, Issa, who's a Palestinian activist. The soldiers raided my house today. They wanted revenge for me participating in the BBC documentary, The Settlers. After the army left, the settlers raided my house. They injured one activist and cut the tree. They stole tools in garbage containers. The Israeli police officer came to threaten me not to file a complaint, as if so I will be arrested for trying to push the settlers outside my house. And you can see when we go to these videos here, go ahead, Jayme, bring up the videos, what they have to go through every single day. So this is the military's there now, and he's talking to them. And
no, it's because I'm too beautiful to see you.
No, come on. And he's arguing with them. He's trying to say these guys came in my house, and now I'm trying to file a complaint, and you're just saying, if you touch them and you push them, you'll go to jail.
No, I don't think. Why you cover it? It's an army. It's not you. It's an army. You do what the army tells you.
And you send it to Gaza now.
To where?
To Gaza now.
Who's in Gaza?
BBC, to Shovrim Shtika.
So what is wrong? What is wrong? B'Tselem is an Israeli human rights organization breaking the silence to soldiers from Nahal, from the same unit as you are. BBC is a friend of Israel.
Of course.
Yeah, Gaza. Are you afraid of Gaza anymore?
No. They are my friends, Gaza.
No, my son. Very famous.
Me?
No, me.
You? Why you have your face if you are famous?
You know exactly.
I go to the next video real quick because we want to show. All right, so watch this one.
Hayal.
Settlers coming in. So now watch the activists. They don't try to push back. They just try to get in front of them.
אומר לך בחוץ. יאללה בחוץ. אל תיגע בי. בחוץ. אני מרביץ לך, אתה בבית שלי. זה בית שלי. חייל?
شرد الجندي
אין בעיה. صور يا وطن.
خلوش عدي
هات التليفون
يا حيال ايه
حيال سريع كنسوا البيت شلي
بو تاسي ماشو بو
They're trying not to push. They're just trying to get in front of them.
وطن دير بالك على التليفون باش يسرقوك مش كمنين קח אותו קח את זה
حيال تكح אותו
نزل ابو عادل ايوه خليهوش يقرب بطل امسك تليفونك ابن تعال خليك جنبي ابو عادل هون سكر كسرني عاد حيال يمشي يا ابو ليبو ابو عادل.
You can see that's good enough. Matt, your final thoughts. That's good, Jayme. You can kill it. Your final thoughts, Matt. That's the intimidation in the West Bank. You can see like the Israeli soldiers pushing one of the guys over there, but they're not really paying attention or listening. They're still doing that. And that's the intimidation that they're going to do from this guy doing the movie,
So
it's so crazy that this is going on and we're funding it and we're okay with it. We just allow it to happen because it's not happening here at home.
Yeah.
There's the tree.
yeah, they destroyed the tree.
Is that the olive tree probably?
Yeah. That's they did
Probably
that.
an olive tree.
Sending a message. And this guy's he's featured in the film. The director, Louis Thurdeau, incredible filmmaker. He knows how to create these relationships. Go into, I guess you call it enemy territory. He spends a lot of the movie in Israel. We saw the film last night. It's remarkable. You guys got to go on Twitter before they say before it's gone. Go check this thing out. 62 minutes, like crazy.
I don't think it's gonna be gone.
Yeah, it's going to be here, but there's massive pushback. Not just this intimidation, and we're seeing from this guy. And again, he's featured in this thing for a while. And you're able to, if you guys watch this, you're able to see what this open air prison looks like. This is constant intimidation. The soldiers are patrolling up and down. They're taunting them constantly. Palestinians who've lived there their entire lives, generation after generation, being told, just being effed with all day long. You gotta go behind this line. You gotta go here. You gotta go there. They're laughing. They're smirking. This is all day long, every single day. They can't run. They have to close their shops that used to be going and crowds of people, and they're not allowed. They just have to stand. They just have to kind of hide in their home. And when they go outside, they get mocked, intimidated, bullied all day long. This is the life for an open air prison all day long. Completely dependent on, like we know, the energy sources coming from Israel. Completely dependent on them, giving them whatever they need. And this is not Gaza. This is, so we know how bad Gaza is, but this is the rest of, this is the West Bank. This is everywhere. Yeah. This is everywhere that Israel has taken, the settlers have taken these lands, and the settlers, they pride themselves on being settlers. So I'll say this, look, as a fellow filmmaker, shout out to Louis Thurdeau for making this film. He has his ability to turn the camera on the people that tell what they're doing. They give away their game plan on camera. It's most of the film is them telling us how horrible and diabolical they are. And now we're seeing pushback, not just the intimidation we saw in the video. We're seeing pushback on the fact that they're calling this film a complete anti-Semitic take on what's really happening there. And they're furious. And you have to ask yourself, why are Zionists and Israelis, some of them, not all of them, obviously some of them are for this film, but why are the Zionists so angry about this film and calling it anti-Semitic when most of the film is Zionists telling us how horrible they are themselves from their own mouths? That's a great question that we need to think about. But again, I recommend everybody watch this film. And these people they're brave, man. This is courage like you've never seen. And we should be inspired by their courage to stand up and restrain themselves and not be bullied in and tempted into violence, because that's what they want. They want them to push back. No, just stand your ground and do what's right and take the high road and act out of courage. It's a beautiful thing to watch in such a horrible environment. So again, I recommend it to everyone.
That's the show for today, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank you for coming on. Great way to end it. Like I said, I don't think they're going to take it down, because the way the people do speak, the Zionists speak, the settlers, they're just looking for people who have their confirmation bias, who, when they said, number one, this is Judea, this is Israel, and the rest of these people, they want to have a jihad. So it's, they're going to find the people who think less than when it comes to Muslims. They think that they're the crazy ones, and find the ones who think it's justified through the Bible that says Israel can colonize and take that land, can be settlers themselves. In most parts of America, if someone barged into your property like these Israeli settlers did, people would see it as justification to shoot and kill. But if they did that here, their family would be labeled as terrorists and unlived. Is that unalived? Unalived in prison for life. Yeah. Unalived, prison for life. So, they can't do this thing. That's why he's not even pushing. He's just trying to get in front of the people over there, because they say, who pushed first? You know what I'm saying? Oh, the Arab did. So that's why they're going to justify it. They're going to find ways for them to justify it. Guys, go check out the movie this Wednesday on my call-in show, Drive Time. Misty Winston will be stopping by. We're going to talk about this, what we have from Marjorie Greene Taylor. I don't know if you saw this, man. I know you got to get out of here. You got to heart out. But let me just really quickly put this up here. Marjorie, you have it up there? Marjorie Greene Taylor. I represent the base, and I'm frustrated and upset with the directions of things. You better be clear. The base is not happy. I campaigned for no more foreign wars, and now we're supposedly on the verge of going to war with Iran. I don't think that we should be bombing foreign countries on behalf of other. Come on, Jayme, move it up. Other foreign countries, especially when they have their own nuclear weapons and massive military strength. On top of that, now we are told that we have a signed deal for mineral rights in Ukraine in order to pay us back for the hundreds of billions of dollars that we gave Ukraine, and they used that money for laundering, sold weapons we gave them to our enemies, and their leader is a dictator who canceled elections, was involved in the first impeachment of Donald Trump and campaigned for Biden. Didn't we learn our lesson when we went to war in Iraq and killed Saddam Hussein because of weapons of mass destruction? Did we ever find any? And did any of that oil ever over in the Middle East ever make us rich? The answer is no. We are now 36 trillion in debt today. So why on earth would we go over and occupy Ukraine and spend untold amount of future American taxpayer dollars defending and mining the minerals, as well as potentially putting American lives at risk and future war? Why don't we just mine our own rare earth minerals that are tied up on federal lands and that the government confiscated years ago? I also campaigned on accountability for the communist and tyrannical acts that made the government during COVID. Yet the COVID vaccine still has FDA approval, even though there are millions reported injuries and deaths. And this mRNA vaccine is known to have horrific side effects and does not stop people from catching COVID. And to this day, it's still on the childhood vaccine schedule. Why on earth is this happening? Hasn't Big Pharma made enough billions and billions and billions of dollars on this lie? I also campaigned on the accountability for all the lawfare that was waged against the American people in the past 4 years. What about the people who were locked up in jail and the abuse they went through? And when were those vicious attorneys and judges ever going to be held accountable for the lives they ruined? I also campaigned to end the waste, fraud, and abuse of the American people's hard-earned tax dollars. I believe Doge mission is one of the most important things happening today in government, and yet we are the recessions that we should be voting on in Congress. And one of the biggest issues in the nation that I have fought for, and early on, is I was the only one who took a loud screaming stand, is this evil transgender assault on our children. Most normal people in the country can't even comprehend how it's allowed to happen to kids who by law can't even get a tattoo, drive, or vote. And how did so many of our teachers turn into predators themselves that groom the children with these gender lies? This should be an all-out effort by Republicans to end this insanity. And look at the extreme nature of our rogue judicial system that is defiant in all their judges to defy our nation's laws and block deportations of little enemies of the United States, where the outrage and normal courage to dispose of any treason, sadly not in Congress. And what about election integrity? This should be the most important issue the Republicans aggressively fight to protect, because without secure elections protected from illegal voting and protections from stealing our votes, the American people have lost their powers. When you're losing Marjorie Taylor Greene, you are losing the base, and Trump isn't on the ballot in the future. So do the math on that. Now, there are some things I disagree with over there, and there's some things I strongly agree with over there. The question is, Matt, is why don't we have somebody on the left, right? And we're going to talk about this on WBAI. We're going to have Misty Winston on, who will be kind of chilling out before it's her debut. Her premiere show starts that night. She's going to come on at 4:05, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, like why the left doesn't have this type of person to stand up. She's voting against the bill today it's another like anti-BDS bill, right? Trying to forbid people from protesting against Israel. She's voting against it with Thomas Massey. They've both been vocal about it. But where's our hero on the left? Final thoughts. Let everybody know where they can find you and get the hell out of here.
Absolutely. The reason we're not going to ever have anyone on the left doing this is that the one person that does it on the right, the left mocks and makes fun of and go, aha, you see what happens when you're having buyer's remorse. It's like without any thought or clue that it takes a little bit of courage to stand up and hold the people accountable that you effing voted for. You're the first person that should have a problem. And nobody on the left will ever do that because they have to protect their tribe. They have to protect their color, the vote blue no matter who. Shitlibs have to protect that at any cost, no matter what. They'll always keep their mouths shut. They'll never have any pushback. So kudos to MTG for doing this. And like you said, we can disagree on some of the points, but the point is hold the people accountable that you vote for. That's what we all should be doing. Period. I'll see you guys next time. I thank you for having me on, Craig. And what we're going to be doing is a show Tuesday on the homeless left. We have Monica Perez stopping by. We're going to talk about the anti-war movement being crushed by Trump. So that'll be cool. And then I think you're coming on Thursday with us on Homeless Left as well. So we're on at 12 Pacific, 3 Eastern, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you guys can check us out, The Homeless Left on Rumble. And one more plug, I'm going to be on with Garland Nixon in a couple hours from now, 4 o'clock Eastern. So check me out there. I don't know what we're going to be getting into, but we always get into some fun stuff every time I go on there.
Matt Weinglass, Homeless Left. We love you. Say hi to Les for us.
Awesome. We'll do. Thanks, Craig.
Later, buddy. So that's it for today. We're going to elaborate more on the Marjorie Taylor Greene statement on Wednesday on Drive Time. If you want to come on over, Misty Winston will be hanging out. Of course, Fiorella and I were supposed to schedule to do a show on Friday, but I think she's going to be on the ground in Moscow for Victory Day. It's kind of like their Victory Week. They have a whole week of stuff going on. So we'll see if we can get her on to see what's going on the ground over there. 19 world leaders will be there. So I don't think you're going to see Ukraine hit this parade. That would be kind of crazy if they tried to. That's it for today. CheeseSlice, what do you got? Nothing? Jayme, you got something?
I was going to share this with you later. You need to read it before I put it on.
Okay. I'll take a look at it later.
Yeah.
Yes. So, guys, thank you so much for following. That's it. All the ways to help down below. I have individual links posted there if you guys want to help out independent media. Every dollar helps. Every dollar counts. And we'll see you on the flip side. Truth out.